Gossipers in the tonier neighborhoods of lovely San Miguel de Allende chewed warily on the story that made the rounds. Eduardo Valseca kidnapped? Surely Mexico's kidnapping epidemic hadn't spread to this famously safe retreat. No, it must have been some vicious payback, something to do with Eduardo himself. And even friends like the soon-to-be mayor, Lucy Nunez, assumed Eduardo was dead.
Oh, yes. I think everybody thought that.
Yeah.
You're watching the television that people that has been kidnapped in 3 or 4 days or maybe in a month or two, but this was 2, 3, 4, 5, 7.
Yes, 7 months. For most of that time, the kidnappers refused to budge from their demand for a ransom of close to $8 million US. And when Jane went into town to beg their friends for loans, money to secure his release, she watched their eyes glaze over.
Friends would say things to me like, "Oh, Jane, I'm so sorry about Eduardo. We liked him so much," and speak about him in the past tense as if he were dead.
Even on the playground, classmates told Jane's children to give up hope.
The little kids would go up to my children and say things like, "Oh, I heard your daddy's dead, that they found him in a plastic bag in the Parque Juarez."
And then Jane would turn on her computer to find messages from a man barely hanging on. "I need you like never before. Help me. Be compassionate toward me. I can't take it anymore." But now, more than half a year in, suddenly something new. The kidnappers' demands dropped into the mid-6 figures. That was money she might be able to borrow from some well-heeled friend.
So I started asking people, and some people would tell me, "Yeah, sure, call me on such and such a date," but then I wouldn't get they wouldn't answer my calls or return my messages.
Lots of people, she discovered, didn't want to get involved. Why?
Well, that they somehow, by helping me, they would expose themselves to this sort of a thing somehow.
At the ranch, Eduardo's grown children from an earlier marriage, desperate also, did everything they could to help, but they didn't have that kind of money. And so they felt very alone in their little family circle as they tried to keep hope going at the ranch.
I want you to look at the camera and give a message to your daddy, because he's going to see this when he gets back.
That I love him so much, and he's the best dad in the whole wide world, and I know he's coming back soon.
And then, quite literally in the depths of their despair, something completely unexpected. Two individuals whom Jane had not approached for loans went to her separately and wrote big checks. Both declined Jane's offers of guarantees or collateral, both at a single condition, that their identities be kept secret, which is how a new flurry of negotiations began with the kidnappers. And Jane finally received the email she'd worked so hard to get. "We have a deal," it read. "Be ready to deliver the money." The final amount, at the request of the family and police, was withheld. A fraction of the original demand, but it had to be in US $100 bills. And it had to be done in secret. In the bank, only the manager knew what Jane was doing.
I had to go in and count it in a back room and make sure that everything was all in order.
Then she called on her acting skills, stuffed down her anxiety, and walked out of the bank.
A couple of people recognized me. This is a small town. Everyone knows you. So I stopped and talked to people and even put the bag down on the floor between my feet as if it was a yoga bag. I felt like I was stuck in a movie that I couldn't get out of.
The kidnappers wanted a family member to make the drop. The federal agent said absolutely not. That would only invite a hostage exchange.
So I went to two of our employees that had been with us for over 10 years, and they said without hesitation, absolutely.
The kidnappers agreed to the substitution. Jane drove those employees, two brothers, to Mexico City, 4 hours on country highways, and then followed very precise directions. What was about to happen in this great city, were it to happen to someone else, would make a fine plot for a suspense flick in some Saturday night Cineplex. But this was Jane it was happening to, and she could have no idea as she came here with her satchel full of money, whether she was going to free her husband or walk into a trap. Were the kidnappers watching her as she checked the brothers into the hotel they specified? Was she now in danger? She felt an itch in her back as she drove through the gargantuan metropolis. No incident, and returned to San Miguel, where she put a doctor and psychologist on standby and called a charter service. She might need a helicopter. And silence. She demanded proof that Eduardo was still alive. She got in return a heart-stopping photo. It was him, all right. He must be alive. He was holding that day's newspaper. But the once robust, youthful Eduardo was now a gaunt, emaciated stranger. In their Mexico City hotel, the brothers waited with the bag of money. 2 days, no word. And then finally an email. The men you chose had to leave the hotel at 5 p.m. They were to wear summer clothes, even though it was winter. They must mark the letter T on their car with duct tape. There could be no weapons, no cell phones. Any hint of the federal police and the deal was off. The two brothers were ordered to a fried chicken place blocks from the hotel. There would be a note taped to the payphone. They found it. It was directions to the next stop. On it went, a macabre scavenger hunt from restaurant to convenience store to restaurant, each stop with a note on a payphone, a map to the next location. For hours, they drove the giant city.
In the final note, on the inside, the note said, "This is a photograph. Make sure that the person that meets you at the next destination has the missing piece."
It was the proof of life photo, with a hole where Eduardo's face should be.
He was instructed to go down a dark alley at a specific spot and meet this person who would have the other piece of the photograph.
Now the brothers understood it was at an end, and they followed the kidnappers' directions with absolute precision. There were eyes on them. They knew it. They pulled up to the end of an alley, as had been ordered. One of the brothers picked up the bag of money, opened the door, got out of the car, walked down the alley, and to the remaining brother's horror, disappeared. There in his cold fear in his car in the dark, he waited, and minutes ticked into hours. It was a trap. His brother was taken. Later, Jane would learn that a strange car hovered nearby, as if to guard the exchange. It was a police car.